Hi, folks. My name's Brennan Story, and this is Thrive Atlantic Counseling. Please ignore any stains or wet spots on my shirt. I was just able to successfully get my 3-month-old daughter fed and down into the, I was going to say basket. What I meant to say was the crib. But we're going to talk today about old age security and guaranteed income supplement. So let's get started. If you're looking into old age security or the guaranteed income supplement, it's usually because you're trying to get a clearer picture of your income and what you can rely on. That's where most of these conversations start when I'm sitting with someone. We're talking about rent or medications or planning ahead, and we go back to the beginning and make sure that these pieces are in place. Part of my work is counseling, supporting people through illness, caregiving, and aging. Another part of what I do is helping people sort through systems. And that includes applications and programs and making sure things that are supposed to be in place actually are. And when someone is trying to understand their financial footing in retirement, we usually start with OAS and GIS. Old Age Security, or OAS, is a federal pension that most people can receive starting at age 65. It's based mainly on how long you've lived in Canada after the age 18. It isn't based on your work history. The amount changes from time to time, but generally it's several $100s a month. It is taxable income. The Guaranteed Income Supplement, or GIS, is an additional monthly amount for people whose income is lower. It's paid on top of OAS, and it isn't taxable. Whether someone qualifies depends on income. If there's a partner, their income is part of the calculation as well. A lot of people aren't sure whether they qualify, and that's totally normal. It isn't always obvious just from looking at your bank account or your tax return. In theory, when someone applies for OAS, the system is supposed to look at income and assess the eligibility for GIS at the same time. Sometimes that works exactly the way it should. Sometimes it doesn't. Applications don't always move through cleanly. Information doesn't always get updated when it should. And sometimes people assume something is in place when it actually isn't, because there wasn't any reason to think otherwise. I sat with people who only discovered years later that GIS had never been put in place simply because something in the process didn't complete properly. It wasn't anyone's fault, it just needed to be checked and corrected. If you're approaching 65 and haven't applied for OAS yet, the place to start is Service Canada. You can apply online or by phone or with a paper form. If you're already receiving OAS, but you're not sure about GIS or your income is low and you've never seen it included, it's reasonable to contact Service Canada and ask them to review your eligibility. To apply, what you usually need is straightforward. First, your social insurance number, your banking information, your most recent tax return, and information about your marital status and income. They're not assessing your house or your savings or any assets. The system is looking mainly at income and residency. Once things are in place, payments are monthly. GIS is recalculated each year using tax information. That's why filing taxes every year really matters, even if your income is low and there's no tax owing. Now, this is the part people often don't realize until they run into it. OAS and GIS connect to other parts of the system. In New Brunswick, programs that help with things like prescription medication, housing, home care, and long-term care often rely on the very same income information. So when a benefit stops, other supports can be affected. I've worked with people who fell behind on filing taxes because life got busy or complicated. When that happens, GIS can stop. Then when they tried to renew drug coverage or housing supports, those programs couldn't confirm income either. Several things changed all at once, and it took time to straighten out, and the system was still using last year's numbers. In those cases, contacting Service Canada and asking for a reassessment helped correct things sooner. And I've seen people paying full price for their medications for months simply because one piece of information was out of place. Once it was corrected, coverage changed and costs dropped. Nothing else about their situation had changed, just the paperwork caught up. If you're trying to make sure things are in order, there are a few places to start first. Number one is Service Canada. That's where OAS and GIS are handled. If you're unsure whether you've applied, unsure whether GIS was assessed, or something just doesn't look right, that's the first call to make. The Second one is your taxes. If filing taxes feels like a barrier, there are free community tax clinics in many areas. You can go to libraries, community centers, volunteer programs often run them. They exist specifically to help people with simple returns and modest income. Third, provincial programs. In New Brunswick, programs like the New Brunswick Drug Plan and services through New Brunswick's Department of Social Development can answer questions about prescription coverage, housing supports, and home care once your income information is up to date. And if all of this feels like a lot to sort through, it's totally normal to get help. Social workers, community agencies, resource centers, and family members often help people make calls and fill out applications. So that's really it, folks. Just making sure that these pieces are understood and in place, and making sure that everyone knows where to get started if they aren't. Thanks.